We're back. I'm digging it. Hey, what's up? I'm digging the new intro, dude. I like it. I kind of like that black hole sort of like thing, that little animation that
you made that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the robot made it.
The robot made it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's I don't know. It's kind of got a good vibe. I think I still wish the text was a little different, but the overall like the general I'm a text Nazi, I guess.
Like what is the font? I don't know what the font is. I'm still I've tried a lot of different ones. I want them like not squirrely, but clear and not blocky, but I don't know, maybe blocky.
Yeah, it's I mean it's a very
the robot recommended the Helvetica. Helvetica was a good one. And then
Helvetica? No.
I don't know why. That's what it said.
Any font that shows up that you can put in any font that anybody can recognize the name is not a good choice. You gotta come up with something that's a little more like designy. I don't know.
That's cool, but not too cool, you know.
Right, exactly.
Teenagers got to be cool, but not too cool.
Yeah.
Johnny's back. We were almost on time.
Almost close.
We are
5 minutes.
War Stain Fun Having.
Yeah.
Episode 81. Everybody's always looking at the Bitcoin price, of course. What, why, how, what the?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about a title for this. I thought of all these like catchy, Bitcoin's going to zero. Keep holding,
Yeah.
And I was like, I was listening to Rabbit Hole Recap yesterday evening, and Matt Odell just threw out this quick little blurb, like there's just kind of squirrelings over all the things going on and who's selling and why and blah, blah, blah. There's so many things. And Odell just was like, markets are going to market. And it's like, market's going to market. So
yeah, 100%. Watching the price action, like it's sort of odd because I just don't care. Like I'm literally just kind of going, all right, whatever. And then it's fodder for a lot of people to talk about, right? Like a lot of people just go,
it surely is.
Reasons, But through all that sort of racket, I did see kind of an interesting take. There's this, and it was from TradingView, right? Like, and TradingView is, for those who don't know, is like the chart, thing. Like you can chart, like all the TA guys use TradingView typically as like their little charting tool or whatever. And talking about price action or whatever, but they have a little news feed underneath. And one of the news blurbs was like, said, or it was a couple of guys that had put forth a theory that this drawdown was likely related to a forced liquidator. And so the thesis these guys put forth was like the October 10 carnage that happened. They said this is now starting to shake out. Like the people that got absolutely wrecked have spent the last 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out just how wrecked they are and what they need to do to fix their problem.
Like we weren't going to sell, but do we have to?
Yeah. Well, like when they look and they go, once all the dust has settled from that like mass liquidation event, because there were like quite literally like, $100 million, $200 million, $500 million, like shitcoin projects that literally zeroed out. I mean, they just went doing like down to like 0.000002 cents. And, and then they sort of sprang back up to like 2 cents. But these were drops that were from like 50 cents down to nothing. And so if you have that across a broad ecosystem of shitcoin projects, hey, good morning, Johnny. What's up, man? How you doing? That leaves a lot of people holding bags, right? But it takes a minute to figure out who's holding what bag and why. And so the idea that these guys put forth is like, hey, somebody got wrecked and now they're taking their Bitcoin and selling it to make sure that they don't, end up in jail kind of thing, right? So they're a forced seller is what the theory was. And it's like a big seller, like some exchange somewhere, somebody just got wrecked. And they're just like funneling it into Binance and selling the shit in measured steps. It's like these, and they pointed out, they said, hey, every single day at the exact same time, there's the exact same sell for this massive amount of Bitcoin. So this isn't like the market just reacted to something. It's like some people in the market that are deeply hosed are now tanking the market because they don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, and I bet it's exacerbated by a bunch of people that went out on leverage. I think there's a lot of levered stuff out there, and so you're like, I can absorb, 10%, whatever. But when it hits 20%, they're like, oh shit.
Whoa, rut roll. Yeah.
um, and a lot of these, I mean, master and the Bitcoin loans and other things. I mean, a lot of people have to be stepping back, going, well, one, are they still in Bitcoin? I bet there's people that got into it and felt like they were into it, but have never seen a slump, like a real one, like we've been through
Oh
many.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But and they just kind of felt like, yeah, and I was feeling this too. I mean, I think it was a month ago I said, I'm just super bullish. I feel super bullish. Things are just a roller coaster up, but it's up and like crazy up. And they're going to have to print the money, is what I said. Like they're going to, and they're going to have to print the money.
Right.
It hasn't really happened yet. And meanwhile, when you see a drawdown like this, everyone steps back and reconsiders their aggression about it, or their how much they push, or are they in it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure,
Uh,
dude. Well, I mean, I don't know if you ever watched that guy Benjamin Cohen. Like we met him in
yeah,
Miami. Like we talked to him a couple, for 10 minutes or whatever in Miami.
yeah.
He's a super nice guy, but he's also super smart and he's an engineer by trade. But he runs a pretty popular like crypto show, like a shitcoin show, but he's mostly a Bitcoin guy, right? Like he still talks about Ethereum and this and that and the other thing, but his primary like talking points, like he basically does the same show 5 days a week. Like he just gets on and talks about Bitcoin dominance and this is probably where Bitcoin's going to fall, and this is probably where Bitcoin tops, and this is why, and this and that. But he's got some interesting analytics that he applies to things. And so one of the things he points out is like every single historical top has been in Q4, right, of the post-halving year. And he said, well, guess where we are right now, Q4 in the post-halving year. So
Yeah.
but the odd wrinkle to this is he said every other top in Bitcoin's history was also met with like frothiness, right? Like people like euphoria, right? Like there were people going like, oh, Bitcoin's going to $1 trillion, yay. And people were just piling in right until the market nuked. Like those big blow off tops happened amidst like the greed indicator pegged to full and just people aping in on the dumbest shit you could imagine and just buying, like hand over fist going like the FOMO was really kicking in for people. And then right after all those people came in, the market nuked, and it drops 70, 80%, right, over the next year or something like that. So, he said this time, if this really was the top, if 126K or whatever was the actual top, said this will be the first top in Bitcoin's history where there was no euphoria phase. It was just straight like apathy. Like it just apathy its way up to 126K, right? Like there's no Google mentions, there's no people talking about Bitcoin in the normie space, nobody flocking to it, and yet price marched right up to 126K anyway. So
It was like a steady background tradfi kind of a march,
yeah,
versus
exactly.
retail. Hey, get in on this.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of curious how it all plays out, right?
And when we say top, it's kind of a cyclical top versus any real top,
well, I mean, yeah, like the cycle top kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you put any stock into the cycle theses, which says, it's a 4-year cycle, right? And it's kind of predicated around the halvings. Like you get a halving, and then about, a couple years later, year and a half, 2 years later, you get a top, and then, about a year before the next halving, you get this like massive bottom from that like frothy euphoria, and then it does a slow march back up, and then you get another halving, and then flash forward about 12 to 18 months and you're at a new all-time high, and then it at least that's what's happened since Genesis, right? Like, and you can't really count Genesis, but from the first halving on, it's sort of like the same pattern plays out over and over and over and over again. So whether that's just a natural market flow, whether that's just how the marketing works in the background, like, because there's always a lot of attention around the halving and things like that, and then people start paying attention again and they get back in. But for the people who've been around like 2 or 3 cycles or 4 cycles or have seen this, they've seen this movie 4 or 5 times, they just kind of go, yeah, it is what it is.
And I'm just like that. I wouldn't care at all, other than that when it went down and I bought some, and then it went down some more and I bought some more. I just there's that always that perpetual not good feeling you have where you bought and it goes up and you wish you'd have bought more, and and it goes down and you buy and it goes down more and you feel like, oh, I could have waited, and you never feel good. But if there's any frustration I have about it, it's that I bought as it dropped and dropped, and now I'm spent, and I just am like, what do I have to do? I think I messaged Johnny earlier this week about, like, I have to start selling stuff. I mean, I don't know. I have my usual routines about it, like fiat cycles, my pay schedule, and how I do that and manage all that. And when I'm stuck in the middle and it's like, oh, I have to like wait, or I don't know. I get my own weird FOMO about it. But also it's like, what's my time frame here? Why am I so impatient?
Yeah.
Like Johnny said, it was when it hit 84, 84, 80, 90,000, not that long ago for the first time. It was, and I mean, what was that? This year?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
I mean,
let's
do you want to bring up your charts, the cholesterol charts? I don't know.
Yeah,
we could look at all that.
Yeah, we can take a peek. We can take a little peek-a-poo. But yeah, here's the logarithmic Bitcoin chart. But yeah, the first time it crossed 84 was right there. That was on almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so we're at baseline a year later,
right?
Then again, it's not stocks or other things that I think so differently about. It's the best, hardest asset you can hold.
Yeah. Well, here's sort of a neat view of it, right? Like that's I mean, like you can hear the power law ding dongs talk about stuff. I mean, it's like just you can fit a S-curve log scale to it probably better, but whatever. I mean, the thing being is, like, if the thing I was talking about before, and I think the thing Ben Cohen talks about is, like, this from Genesis to the first peak, 616 days. From the first halving to the first frothy peak was 385 days. From the second halving to the next peak was 500 days. From the next halving after that to the next peak was 553 days. And then from this halving to this, if that really was the top, which we don't know yet, that's 539 days. So you can look at that and go, well, hey, is this time different? Like, what makes it different? I don't know, right? Like, there's nothing here that indicates to me like this should be different this time because we have some massive liquidity spike. Not there. In fact, this is the first big peak aside from 2019 where this was the exact same tightening conditions that we have here. Like, this was when they were doing quantitative tightening. This is when they were withdrawing liquidity from the market. And it wasn't until the pandemic like shock where everything just like nuked. And then they did this massive print, but they started the printing here. But you don't see the reaction to that market until here, which was 200 and X number of days forward, right? Like 250 days after they start injecting liquidity is when that starts hitting the assets, right? So even if they did like a massive monetary injection today, which it looks like they're going to do the opposite, like they might be drawn down quantitative tightening or whatever, but if you go 250 days into the, or 200, let's say 230 days into the future, that's July before any new liquidity hits. So if today they said, print or go burr, we're going to do massive stimulus, everyone's going to get $2,000 checks, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 you're not looking until July before that price starts climbing back again because of that stimulus, right? So I think the question right now is, does this thing do like, where's my little drawing thing? Like, does the Bitcoin price kind of do like, Oh, you piece of junk. Do something where it's sort of like this little like wee whoop, right? Or does it kind of do like a wee whoop and then start going back up again, right? I mean, but that, like if anybody could tell the future, that's what they would do, right? So the thing being is we could chop sideways at 85K for a year. We could like have a V-shaped recovery after whatever this, if it really was a liquidation event, there could be a V-shaped recovery and we shoot right back to 150 right after this. The trouble is you just can't tell, right? Like there's no way to know. But what I can say, I'll share my screen again just real quickly here, that I actually had the robot backtest this idea, and the robot said this backtest is actually pretty sound. Like it's more performant than any other trading strategy you can get. And that is the 9 EMA on a weekly chart and the 18 SMA, or I might have that backwards. Let me see. Do I have that backwards? Where is it? Oh, I see. There we go. So yeah, the purple line is the 18 simple moving average. The yellow line is the 9 exponential moving average. So that means this is 9 weeks of exponential moving average. And this purple line is 18 weeks of simple moving average. So it looks backwards from here and goes 18 weeks back and says this is the average price. This one, the yellow one, looks back a shorter time period and does an exponential addition to that and then trails off the average further back into the series, right? So more recent numbers have more impact than older numbers. So it's more responsive to price shifts, right? But then the other wrinkle you have is like when this crosses below, when the 9 EMA crosses below the 18 SMA, that is indicative of recent selling pressure is stronger than the average price, right? Like the average volume. So that shows you that there's been more recent selling than buying. The converse is also true. If when this crosses above, you go, oh, there's more on average, more recent buying than there is selling. But the one thing you can do to add some fidelity to this model is this right here, is the RSI. Most people use the RSI as like overbought, oversold. I use the RSI as like, is it above 50 or below 50? And that cuts out the noise. But what you can see is like, if you look at this, you go, okay, right here would have technically been a sell point, but then you would have bought right back in about here. So you would have lost a little cabbage, but you would have missed that downturn. In case this turned vicious, you would have missed it, right? But this is where we're at right now. And so we are like steeply under the 50, and this is steeply curved down. Like, so the recent selling pressure is massive compared to the average buy pressure, right? And this is well underneath the 50 line here. So if you have half a brain in your head, I think is if you're watching this drawdown and you keep catching this falling knife every week, week after week after week, my suggestion is like maybe pump the brakes on that idea and then wait for this thing to turn around. So this crosses above and this crosses above, and then use that to time your entries, right? So you can sort of maximize the likelihood that you're going to have an upside on the way up. So that's my kind of 2-cent thesis, and I'll.
So we've got like the death cross they talked about there, recent
sort of,
death
yeah.
cross.
But those guys that are talking about death crosses are talking about longer time frames and very simple moving averages, and they leave out the RSI completely. So they don't incorporate things that can help cut out noise, right? And I don't necessarily put a lot of faith in the death cross because if, looking in that chart before, there's all kinds of these crosses that someone might call a death cross. But without that, absent the RSI move, all it is just chop, right? And this is the precise indicator that I use to time my buy at 16.8. Like it's the exact same identical marker that I used when I was running around, like when the whole world was saying it's going to go to 12K, it's going to go to 10K, don't buy now, but like all the bears were out panicking and flipping out. I was walking around our mutual friend employer out there and was telling people, I can't say with certainty this is a good idea. All I can tell you is I'm buying I'm all in right now. Like everything I have is going in. I think you should do it. And everyone went, I don't know. But what if it drops? And I go, that's very possible. I can't predict the future. All I'm saying is this strategy that I've back tested personally has a very, very high hit rate. It's like 80%. So based on an 80% hit rate, I go, this is probably a good time to buy. And then I did, and it's one of the best Bitcoin buys I ever did in my life. So
yeah. And what wasn't the price like 40 or 50 back then? I can't remember, but
16.8.
oh, that's when it was 16.
Yeah.
that was that ultimate drop.
Yeah. Well, that was the point, is like I completely missed the entirety of that drop. Like I didn't buy a single thing from the time that crossed down after the 2020 high or 2021 high. Like I was just sitting on my hands and just collecting cash and just watching and watching and watching. And I kept watching and I was like, I don't know when this is going to recover. All I know is I'm just sitting on cash. Like I don't want any part of this market. And there are people that were DCAing the whole time and this and that and the other thing. And I go, I mean, it's a fine strategy. There's nothing wrong with it, but I choose like big buys at opportune times is sort of my thesis here. And right now I go, there's no part of me that wants to put any money into like any additional, because I don't want to catch a falling knife. I want to wait till this thing bottoms and I get a strong signal that says, well, it looks like we'll be back on an upturn. So whether that means I, start adding to my stack again at 92K or 100K, or if I add to my stack at 60K or 30K, I don't know. But my thesis says like I want to maximize my stack if possible. And the best way to do that is to just watch the price go up, be happy about it. And then when it goes down, like find another good opportunity to buy some more and then watch it go back up again. Like whether it takes 4 years, 8 years, or 20 years, it kind of doesn't matter. Like up and to the right is the thesis. And regardless of anything else you think about short-term price action, up and to the right has been a very clear, consistent through line for the last 15 years. So,
Yeah. And dollar cost averaging, dollar cock averaging is not a bad strategy. It short circuits the psychology around all that. I don't know if you have any charts around what is it? When instead of when moon, it might be when laid. The important chart there.
Yeah.
Dating women, all that. It's a fiat game for sure.
Yeah, it's all fiat.
Fiat, and everything we talk about here on the charts and prices and numbers and stuff. It is the language of fiat. That's how we translate what we understand about what's going on, because people are predominantly. I mean, you're getting in and getting out of Bitcoin with your fiat, and that's what drives so much of this.
Yeah. Well, we live in a fiat world, right? Like we don't live in a hunter-gatherer society where we trade berries, and we certainly don't live in a barter economy, and we certainly don't live in, we live in a world that is built and maintained and run on fiat rails 100%. So as much as people might want to check out of that world, I go, well, you don't get it. You don't have a choice in the matter now. Like it is so deeply ingrained in everything we do. Most people would starve if this system went away. So I go, you might want that system to keep around for a little while. And so, but the downside of that is you actually have to talk in fiat terms, right? Like we all do. We price our lives in fiat. We, pay our rent in fiat. We pay our car payments in fiat. We pay our insurance in fiat. We get taxed in fiat. We get fined in fiat. So it's all just fiat. It's fiat all the way down. So,
yeah. And then the origin of fiat. Trickling down. I mean, the project you're working on now, I keep wanting to dive into that because it's been on my mind recently. I was up late last night, as I told you, learning on what you're working on. And I keep wanting to, so for me, it's when we think fiat and the origin of money and what is money and how so much of that is like, well, it started as like a medium of exchange and a way to help, just make barter easier and all that stuff. And as I've been learning just this past week, really, as I've been reading stuff, it is so much deeper than that. And it starts with just the deepest origins of human anthropology and power structures and that shift. There's Travis.
What's up, Travis?
Yeah. I mean, you think about the hunter-gatherer world versus and it's not just agriculture, but let's use agriculture and grains as an example, and being more sedentary and having a fence around your plot.
Yeah.
Like this is our land and we work this land. And it's not just, oh, well, now we have grain and now we have a ledger and now we have money.
Right.
It is all the social things around what it takes to maintain that system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway, my mind has been blown away lately, just getting my mind around the deepest natures of all the things that, yes, ultimately created the structures that ultimately issued the money and why. And then it helps answer the question, what is money?
Oh, yeah. Well, for those who are watching and don't know, I sent Fritz the first 3 chapters of my new book that I'm working on. And I was telling Fritz offline, like, this is sort of my, I guess, the capstone of my career. I think, like, this will be the thing that I'll either be known for. I mean, most books just kind of end up on the dust heap anyway, so who knows? But really is a deep dive into like the origins of money. Like, I kind of want to take my crack at definitively answering what is money, where it comes from, and why. But that journey takes us through anthropology, archaeology, and it takes us to like deep time, right? Like, it's not like most accounts of money start after, 5,000 years after agriculture was born. They go, oh, here's money, and this is why money is the way it is. And the barter vignette about, like, long ago people used to trade shells for things because they couldn't trade shoes for ox carts or whatever the narrative comes up with. But I think it's more important to kind of go further back. But as Fritz was kind of alluding to, this takes us to a place where if you know where to trace and how to connect the dots, like, all of a sudden the picture starts becoming, I think, pretty clear, right?
It's
like,
very clear.
yeah, like, you just go, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. Like, and I think it gets rid of a lot of the problems that like chartalist theories on money or the credit theories of money or the commodity theories of money. They all have little holes that they can't quite patch over. And like for the commodity people, you go, well, okay, if that's true, then why is credit present? Why does the sovereign still issue a unit? And like, you have to overcome a mythical origin to make that theory work. And the same thing for the credit people. They go, well, it's all based on social relations and this and that and the other thing. Then they have to answer the question, well, who enforces that though? Like, absent enforcement, you just have people, I owe you one, and then they never pay. So if there's no mechanism to enforce it, that means the state has some role in credit. But the chartalists who just say, oh yeah, well, the state just creates money and they create demand for it. And that's, and like all the MMT people, well, you can just make as much as you want because the state always makes you take it. And you go, well then, but you have to overcome, like, where does that unit come from and why? Like, did they just magically come up with a number and go, oh, this is what it is now, and just ignored all of the credit theories and all the commodity theories that predate it? But if you look at the anthropology and if you look at the archaeology, you can tie a string across all of those, so they all become nested functions, is what I would say they are. They're not necessarily the story, they're nested functions within the story. And so I'm super excited to share this book with the world. I'm just got to finish it.
Oh man, it's going to be huge. I mean, Lynn Alden's great, and there are smart financial folks out there, Larry Lepard, and all the things about money and the printing. They're great, but what people, crazy people like us who really love to understand the deepest origins of how did all of this emerge and occur and then get captured, we would say.
Right.
And it shows you how it was captured from the beginning. The capture was what the system, why it was created
Right.
early on. But before you'd say there was money, the system of capture was there in the form of organized people having more, but then managing that, and particularly with agriculture and storage. But anyway, this gets into, like, some people don't care about the history of stuff. Like, so you'd given me some chapters and I had them printed out and I was reading them, and my wife was kind of going, like, what is all this? Why are you reading that? Like, it looks it looks complicated. And it's a very good, easy enough to read. And I said, I was in this moment because I was just feeling heady about what this was saying. And I said, honey, if you want to like understand me better or why I talk and think the way I do psychopathically about like, why are you so consumed by money or whatever? And it's like, it's not money. It's not like, oh yeah, a number go up or our finances or we're going to retire. It's the fundamental motivations of humans, and not just like right now, incentives and outcomes. We're talking through all of time as a human animal that has evolved, those incentive structures and how they've evolved. And for me, it's the deepest answers to the deepest questions. I was like, honey, if you were to read this, you'll understand me better, like why I am crazy. But anyway,
I don't think it's crazy thinking, right? I mean, I think it's a natural thing for people to want to understand why the world works the way it does, right? I think it's a natural.
I think people are going to want to know this stuff,
right? And if you can provide a more clear picture, a more coherent idea, a cleaner idea, a simpler idea, and you can rely on existing research that sort of paints that picture. But if you have to take into account like economics, archaeology, and anthropology and political economy don't really talk to each other, right? Economics and political economy overlap a little bit, but only on the margins. Archaeology started coming in a little bit with like David Graeber's work and that the first 5,000 years and that sort of work creeps into the economics literature, but the econ people push back with chartalist and creditist and commodity ideas, right? And so they sort of discount his work. And then the archaeologists are like off way in another field, So the archaeologists and anthropologists talk amongst themselves and dicker and argue about details, but no one is ever sitting like in a meta position and looking at all the pieces on the board and going, hey, don't you guys realize like you have a very common theme here? How are you not seeing this? And I go, because we don't think about that kind of shit, right? Like we don't give a shit about that. That's not germane to my field, my discipline. So I think that's one of the neat things about the modern age is now we live in an age where like an independent researcher who's not affiliated and doesn't have any institutional like drive, right? Like if I were a professor of economics at Stanford, I can't go on some deep dive archaeological fucking thing because like I'm never going to get published that way, and it could potentially be detrimental to my academic career. Never mind, I'm just not going to bother to look down that road anyway because my tenure as a professor is dependent on me sticking with the orthodoxy, right? But it's the same thing for the archaeologists and the anthropologists and everybody else. They're in their lane and they want to stay in their lane because that's where their bread gets buttered, But for someone like me who's an independent and now has access to like this vast trove of research and like I have an army of research assistants right in an AI, and I have an army of editors right in an AI, and I have an army of fact checkers and and theory checkers, and like it's like I'm at an institution with unlimited resources and I can just think my way through a problem. So it's kind of freeing, but I think this is sort of the future of what research starts to look like. It's kind of like what happened with media. Like you have these centralized institutions that have their centralized narratives and they stick to them. But just like independent journalists have now shattered that all to pieces, and independent media and podcasters and things like that have completely shattered that whole entire landscape. I think the same thing is going to happen with independent research now. And I think that barrier to entry has been broken. It's just most people haven't realized it yet.
Yeah. AI has blown a lid open on human capability and access to stuff. Not that you just like, oh, it'll just tell me what to think and do and whatever. But I mean, it is a serious tool. And it blows open also the concept of epicycles. An epicycle where you have a whole school of thought around an idea, and then but it doesn't quite reconcile or jive with an adjacent field, or they can make these threads connect, but it's like string theory or something.
Yeah.
And we have access to information now to dig deep and break loose paradigms. I mean,
Yeah.
and so where in the past paradigms could break loose, like there was, I can't remember who said it, but there was a joke, kind of a quote in the physics realm many decades ago, where like um, human progress in physics is measured in funerals, um, where it's like until people just go away and new people come up with their own new fiat idea,
Right.
progress is just like a grind. Like, okay, we're
Yeah.
here now, but now you can't leave this, and it's an
Right.
Overton window, but it's an Overton window managed tightly by ministers, and you're
Right.
still, even as you can study and go to the library, you're still relying on a ministry to tell you.
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, it's all there. Go do stuff. You can
Yeah.
go
Go
do
do
stuff.
stuff. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's really well put, man. Like that gatekeeping function of academia, like for anybody in the Bitcoin circles, they are already well aware of like academic bias and how academia has been sort of co-opted and the gatekeeping function and all that kind of stuff. But for someone who's actually been immersed in the world of academia, at least superficially, like I was a peer reviewer and I did a peer review for a drug journal, and then I did another I got invited back to do a peer review for another drug journal. And in both journals, I did what I thought I was supposed to be doing. I critiqued the author, right? I critiqued their work. I went and checked their sources. I went and verified their claims. And the second review was when I got it, because it was blind, right? Like I don't know who the other reviewer was, but I got to see his notes. And it was blind to the researcher. It wasn't blind to the reviewers, right? So I saw this researcher. It was a big team of people, and the lady that wrote the article, that was like the lead author on the article, and there's like 8 or 10 grad students or whatever that got some credit on the thing just for contributing research or whatever. uh Very, very prestigious author, like super well published, has dozens of books out, like an expert in the field, right? And so this article was just for her. I've come to realize, I didn't know this at the time, is just a thing to like throw a bone to her grad students and just notch another publication on her belt, right? Like she just strings together some shit, kind of rehashes whatever idea she's been putting out for the last 10 years. And people go, yeah, you're amazing. Oh, yeah, we love you. Here. And they just publish it, right? So she gets another credit. She gets another reference. She gets another citation. I went through it and went, okay, well, how come you wrote all this stuff when there's like 40 European journals that cover the exact same thing? And they all came to different conclusions than you, and they completely challenged this whole thesis. And what about this? And what about this? And what about this thing? And why would you bring this up? And I mean, I did what I
Uh-oh.
thought academic review was supposed to be. I want to test your claims to make sure that they're valid, to make sure they advance the field, that they do something unique and useful. And then when I got the other reviewers, it was like this guy was just practically gobbling this lady's joint. I mean, he was just down on his knees, just like licking her nuts and just going like, "Oh, this is amazing and such a great contribution. You're such a great author," and blah blah blah. And I noticed there's a little typo here, and maybe you could rephrase this paragraph, and like these really, really just like faint traces of like just enough to make it look like the guy was being critical, right? I mean, that was it. And I was looking at my review like, I hammer fucked this lady, dude. Like I was just like, this is all. And so when the editorial board wrote back, they just said you should pay particular attention to reviewer two's notes, and that was it. Like no, like hey, these are great notes, thank you so much. Yeah, these are great catches. It was just like this really cold, distant, isolated, and then I never got invited back. And I went, but I was doing what I was supposed to do, and it's not until now I
Science.
realized, yeah, it's not science, dude. It's a club, right? And in order for you to maintain your good standing in the club, you have to maintain good relations with the people that are like leaders of the club, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I came in as like some snooty little upstart and just, you know, took a wrecking ball to their whole little scheme. And, that's not a way to reward your academic success, career, path forward, any of that kind of stuff. But that's part of the problem with academia is it's like, it's that kind of shit going on in the background. It's this high
Oh
school
yeah.
drama shit.
Well, and the lid is blown so hard off that I mean, I think a lot. I think new up and coming generations growing up in this world are going to seriously start to question. Well, kids question everything anyway.
Right.
But when it's not just bullshit like what's cool, what's the least amount of effort, they can have access to whatever they want. I think, yeah, I was just going to say, Johnny, the whole college system, I think, is under threat from people that are like doing the math even, but
Yeah.
also feeling like, I mean, I experienced this in the 90s and the turn of the century where there were people who were going to college because it was kind of what you had to do. And you might not get hired unless you'd really done something amazing without a degree. So yeah, you needed a degree. So you went to class, you did enough to pass. Well, I kind of did that. But anytime outside of class or say women, you were like doing your own shit and you were just I mean, you were building, you were learning, you were doing stuff, and stuff was happening. The internet was blowing up. Things were just churning along. And then you went back to class and you had a tenured guy who had a big Boeing contract that's like, well, basically, because Boeing codes in Ada, we're
We're
learning
learning
Ada,
Ada.
and you're going to learn how to do fault interrupts on firmware because not that you're going to go do firmware for autopilot on Boeing planes, but it's applicable conceptually, generally. And I'm sitting in class just like, there is a world happening out here, but I have to pass this class. And I got so cynical of college. And we're talking 1999, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Kids today are going to look at the landscape, have access to everything. If they have some incentives of their own that aren't just fiat, there are kids out there smarter than me. I mean, my kids are smarter than I am. And you can just go do things. And, you know, anyone can just go do things now. And that's with AI, that's getting into research, science, vibe coding, or just, you know, deep dive and not just like, well, I'm going to learn all this. And then, well, I know that. It's like connecting all the things. How does the world work?
Yeah.
You can start to connect it all and you don't need to be told.
Right.
Or bounce between professors and try to sort it out. It's just like, no.
Yeah.
We
Well,
have
I
it.
mean, I think like the academic world is useful. Like when I first got to the LSC, I had published 3 or 4 papers in law reviews, right? And so I kind of went in there a little bit cocksure of my research ability. But that, the law has a very specific citation and reference style, right? And it's all about precedent and, supporting documentation, right? Can you make this statement legally? Is this legally sound reasoning? And then there's like endless documentation of whether or not that works or not, right? So when it comes to the physical sciences, physics, chemistry, whatever, there's like the neat, super neat thing about the hard sciences is that they just have to test a thing. They go, I think this rock does this thing because of these reasons. And then they test it. And all they have to do is write about what the results were. Either was false, either was a false assumption or not, right? Either the theory is falsified or not. So they don't have to interject a lot of opinion about why it may or may not be that way. The social sciences are completely different. The humanities are even further off the map than that. And that is a lot of like, you need to justify your reasoning based on other people's reasoning without any real concrete evidence. It's just observational stuff, right? So it drifts into this weird world where the opinions matter, and that is sort of the antithesis of science, right? But if an opinion becomes popular, then it gets that flywheel effect and it becomes like a thing that sort of resonates throughout the field. But it also taught me when I got to the LSC that, like, hey, some of these people have thought about these problems a lot. And they have some pretty good, pretty solid arguments for why they think their ideas are pretty good. And to overcome that and upset that apple cart is like an enormous climb, right? It's almost as hard as it is to climb over the social or the hard science things, but it takes a very different language to be able to pull that off. So it's this really weird thing, but it certainly, being in that world helps refine your ability to articulate ideas. So whether or not, if you get a basket weaving degree or something like that at the University of Ding Dong, Wisconsin or whatever, like who knows, right? But hard sciences tend to be pretty useful in terms of furthering a career, things like that. But even that, as Johnny pointed out, it's kind of a scam. Like they charge way more than that degree is ever going to be worth. So it's a little iffy there. But when it comes to the social sciences now, like that, it's all basically vaporized, right? Like there's it's going to be really hard to hang your hat on some of those ideas when the overwhelming evidence points to like, maybe your idea isn't all that sound to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
So that academic momentum kind of, I think, is going to drift. But being in the institution, at least right now, is still really helpful because it helps pick apart your ideas. It helps make sure that you aren't just running headlong with an idea that may not hold up to intense scrutiny, and that's what the academic world provides on some level, is academic scrutiny. So we'll see what the robots do about that, but you know
Yeah, society is going to change. I think people's expectations are changing, and they're just not going to put up with hierarchical structures so much anymore. I think it's going to be like I can do stuff, um, and if something comes up, we can all test it and not trust, verify.
yeah.
So and
Well,
and
oh, go
yeah,
ahead, sorry.
well, I'm just thinking of Bitcoin being like that. Bitcoin is something that it's not like promises of stuff. It's all the free and open source ideas. It's just like look at the code, use the code,
Right.
change the
Yeah.
code,
Yeah.
do what you want.
Go
So,
nuts.
yeah, go
Well,
nuts.
the thing I was going to say is, like, I think what's going to happen to academia is probably the same thing that's happened in the media landscape, right? Like what you have right now, because of access to the tools, you have, a 1,000x increase in the number of people trying to do media work, right? Trying to launch a podcast, trying to talk about things, trying to be a talking head, trying to be a pundit, things like that. But it's the same select group of people that rise to the top of that crowd. And part of that is momentum. Part of that is, just the biology of humans and how we orient around influence and things like that. But it certainly didn't democratize the space. It democratized the ability to try, but it certainly doesn't democratize the number of voices, because like there's one for every one Joe Rogan, there's like 15,000 imposters that will never even come close to Joe Rogan. And for every Candace Owens, there's like a million other little talking heads that are never going to get to that place. So it kind of ends up in the same landscape as the institutions. It's just the institutions get knocked down to people, right? Individuals. And I think the same thing will happen to research, right? Like right now you have Harvard as an institution, but there's going to be some independent researcher somewhere that's going to become the penultimate economics person or history person or whatever, that's not necessarily associated with an institution, and then the institution just ends up being CNN or CBS, or like they keep the traction with the old people that are just used to it, but the new people just don't care about them anymore, don't watch them, don't listen, don't give a shit. But amongst all that, you're going to have like, and you already see it to this day, like people will put out like this quote unquote research, and but the conclusion is like, see, this proves lizard men live in the sewers of New York and they drink baby blood, and that's why the world works the way it does. And you go, that's not good research, dude. That's just like you finding things that support your bias. And so I think you're probably going to see a lot of that flooding the market, with AI tools especially. But quality research, I hope, will stand out still. Is sort of my just like
Yeah,
quality podcasting does or whatever.
yeah, such as this one.
Right.
um,
Exactly.
uh, and like when I think of podcasters, I mean there are it's going to be a more free and open market of ideas where I might say, okay, boomers just, well, no, I always, like, the grandparents always trusted Walter Cronkite and Walter Cronkite was just good. Or, well, no, I watch CNN or Fox News and it's just, that's where it's at. And it's just, once I figured that out, I just saddle up there every morning. I think with modern podcasting, it's like if podcasts are become relevant and gain in capture, and they're going to stay as they maintain that. And if they start to fade or change or become less relevant to the audience will move.
Right.
And so, and no, kids today are not beholden to these authorities anymore. It's like, oh yeah, no, they were cool, they're good. I just, stopped watching them, or
Yeah.
have you heard of so and so, and they bounce and float around.
Mhm.
You know, Rogan has been like that for me, and or you think of, you know, a lot of these folks. You know, Candace has risen lately quite
Yeah.
dramatically,
Astonishing. Yeah.
astonishingly, and interesting approach there, but makes you think. Tucker Carlson, and then they'll refer to other podcasters doing other stuff as well, and or have people on their show, and people start to just find organically. They're seeking quality. I tossed in a quick little note
Yeah,
in
I
there.
saw that. Rybert.
I'd referred to this, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something about. I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance back in college, and it's very deep, honestly. But he was in the academia world and saw structures and hierarchies and how just things are just how they are, and you playing that game and in being in that system, you just must jump, you know, must just jump the hoops and work that game. And what he was trying to decipher was quality. Like, it was kind of this esoteric, nebulous, like, well, we can't always know, you know, like you can't measure and discern quality. And he was arguing you can, and not just in science, but in philosophy, you can measure things about quality, and in the arts.
Right.
And anyway, there were interesting ideas, and I think people subconsciously, innately, I think we know that we want that. We just can't articulate it or describe it when we see it. We're
Right.
just, you know, it just resonates, and and so yeah, up and coming generations, things are just going to hit or they don't. They
Right.
won't know necessarily why or not. It's just going to be fresh and happening. Now, what does attract eyeballs is our hooks. So you can do the clickbaity stuff for a while and you'll hook. But can you keep doing that and keep an audience?
Right.
You know, you have to. There has to be something there.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I feel really bullish, and even with AI, I know there's concern about AI and captured stuff, but AI is breaking loose a lot of good. So,
Yeah. Well, I think if it works out the way that I think it ought to work out, where it makes everybody the best version of themselves that they can be, right? Like, and it eliminates a lot of barriers to being the best person you can be. And if it continues on that trajectory, then I think the world gets to be a much better place, right? And it's not necessarily just Elon's robots going and doing your gardening for you, but I mean, it's like at every level of society, if you can be the best plumber that you could possibly be, and everybody is competing at a higher level and doing things in a better way, in a better fashion, you're going to be the best broadcaster you can be, the best podcaster you can be, the best editor you can be, the best typesetter you can be, whatever it is, right? You can. I think it provides a lot of opportunity, not necessarily to like create quote unquote jobs, but to create avenues for people to become productive and useful, right?
yeah,
And if you can maximize that, then I think it ushers in a lot of neat stuff. But
yep,
you know, right now it's sort of in that weird place where like search was back 20, 30 years ago, where it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of neat. I can, you know, find, you know, and people like they're defaulting from Google search to the robot, right? Like I almost never Google search anything unless it's like trying to find somebody's address. Like, hey, where's this store? You know, but I don't ask, you know, because it's just annoying to search for an answer to a question when you can just ask the question, right?
yep,
And so I think a lot of people are defaulting to that sort of mode. There's like I asked the robot the other day, I said, how many people are actually using you for something more than just, you know, rudimentary search and answering dumb questions and like, hey, what's the quickest way to tie my shoes or, you know, shit like that. And the robot says it's, you know, 10, 15% or what you might call power users. And they are the people that are using it for like advanced research, or they're using it for advanced business metrics, or they're using it in business enterprise contexts and things like that. So there's still this like enormous gap between the people that are using it effectively and the people that are using it sort of like as a replacement for search or just out of laziness, or, you know, or they're chatting with it like for therapy or some crazy shit like that.
yeah.
But, you know, we'll see where it goes and we'll see where the tech leads. And if they can actually become profitable, because it costs an enormous amount of money, like especially for someone like me to come along and really, really put that machine to its paces. Like it, I, I'm sure I'm costing, OpenAI and XAI like just a shit ton of money every week. Just
while it's still free and affordable as they capture their market.
yeah, well, yeah. I
I
mean,
remember when
I'm
YouTube
paying,
didn't have ads. I remember when Google didn't have all the wade through shit.
right,
So it's a sphere that is capturing, and in areas will have its walled gardens or capture. I mean, there's all that on a thinking
thanks,
of
Johnny.
this. Yeah, it's awesome. Um, Thinking of the psychology of of kids growing up in this world, and how, and I see it in my kids, my daughter right now, just the huge exploration, creativity, mental flexibility. It's just a sponge that is just growing and pushing every boundary where it can, and it's just like there's this, as we grow up and into our teenage years and beyond, it's like we have that energy. And that's what I feel so bullish about humanity about, is that innately in us, we are born with that thriving energy of like we want to know, and we want to explore, and we want to see it and play with it.
Right,
And then as you become an adult, and what you do, and I think as the system, you might call it a fiat system or whatever it is, but you are trained. Your book gets to this. I think about the evolution of humanity. But now you're interfacing with a world where, oh, you want to be successful or secure, you're going to plug in and fit models that are inflexible, or just, this is the way it is. And that could be, realms of law and policy and procedure and economics, sure, for reasons. But you do that long enough, and after a while you're just like, it's a coping survival thing, but your brain starts to fit in the box. It's become a square, and you just don't need any more stress or pressure in your life, because there's enough of that. And so you start to box yourself mentally, and you see it. I'll recognize it myself, where it's just like I get to my job, and it's just kind of a management cope. And I think the concern about kids not having a purpose, or adults not having a purpose, or everyone's just coping and just hustle to maintain stasis. I think as people grow up with the tools we have now, there's going to be the capability to never feel that rut. You can always still have the access to explore and learn, and not wait to be told. You can
right,
you can go you can perpetually, you can go do stuff, you can go think stuff, you can write it down, you can go blather online as we do. You can do all the things if you want.
yeah,
And there's just and try all these different things, instead of like, well, I'm gonna like, I've been told this was good, son, get into plastics. And you go and you study plastics.
yeah,
You get a degree in plastics chemistry or whatever, and you go work for the plastics company, and you put in all your time, and the sagely advice from your peers and your ancestors is, stick it out, son. In 50 years, you'll be fine. And
yeah,
now that game is eroded,
right.
and everyone's like suffering from the mental health aspects from that. And yet we're on the winds of change, where the door is wide open. And
Yeah.
now financially, Bitcoin provides that escape hatch and solution to the system. On a mental level, it's AI and the internet's connections we have.
Yeah. Well, I think Bitcoin occupies a unique role, and I talk about it all the time. Like in a 12,000 year game of resource capture and exclusion and control and making sure that people stay productive, and but also making sure mouths get fed and that your productive labor doesn't run away and stuff like that. It's simultaneously like uh like sedentism gives you it becomes a trap, right? Because you come to rely on it.
Mental sedentism is what we get.
Yeah, well, you get mental and physical, right? Like
Yeah.
if you said tomorrow, I just want to go live off the land, like what kind of shift would you have to make in your world, right? Because all the land is owned and all the resources are held. And for you to like figure out how to integrate yourself back into nature and just, catch a squirrel and pick some berries and kind of move with the herds, like you're so constrained from being able to pull that off, like it's nearly impossible. So you have to, even at the margins, you have to end up on some level of state interaction. Like you just can't escape it anymore. And therein lies the trap is like if you if everyone had just stayed where it's like, oh, the herd moved, we're gonna move. Oh, the berries are ripening down here instead of here, we're gonna go get those. And it was sort of opportunistic, immediate return foraging, like the world looks very different, right? But once the population settles down and once the populations grow because they're settled and because there's denser but weaker calories available and they're available regularly, you end up inadvertently like springing your own trap. You go, hey, well, now that I've got this, I can't ever leave. Oops. It's like it's Hotel California. You
Mm-hmm.
can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. And that's, I think, what sedentism did for humanity. And then if you couple it with like pastoralist traditions of vengeance and retribution and all that kind of stuff, you end up with the competitive system that we live in today. It's sort of a weird arc and weird trajectory, but it's very logical and it all makes sense once you kind of see it unpacked. So Bitcoin is unique in that sphere because it takes the one Achilles heel of the whole system and just like gives it to everybody. Says, hey,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that this system is predicated on is that we can, like a select few, control the resources, they gatekeep it, and then they use that as a means to control others to make sure others stay profitable and productive. So the people that are gatekeeping stay fat and happy, and everyone else operates at the whim of the gatekeepers, right? Bitcoin removes that gate from at least one asset on the planet, and that changes how the whole game gets played. And that, it's a thesis I'll come back to probably for the rest of my life. But it's so important that I really wish people. I My kind of deeper hope for this book is that people will better understand what money is and why, so they take more seriously what Bitcoin offers. Because I think right now people just think of it as like a fiat thing. Like
Yeah.
arguably 90% of people that hold Bitcoin are fiat people. They just think in
Sure.
fiat terms and they operate in a fiat world and they don't want anything different. That's just, it's a speculation for them. But there's that. I would love to see that number get flipped. So there's 10% of the people think of it that way, and the other 90% realize like, oh, this is a game changer. It's not just like, oh, it's number go up, or I can buy coffee in Bolivia, or I can buy cocaine in Jamaica, or whatever it is. It's more about like, hey, this changes a resource capture game that's been the foundation of our entire global apparatus for 12,000 years. And this is one thing that's different now. So that, if you talk about this time is different, I go, well, this time really is different. First time in 12,000 years. And there's that confluence with AI as well. So you get this really neat sort of potential that we're right on the cusp of unlocking if we just treat it right and are careful about its execution. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's the tool that we've never seen before that could we're just beginning to see it break everything open, but it's so much deeper than that that when I'm out there going talking Bitcoin, 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 and people who interface with that are thinking in terms of, oh, you're still doing this number go up thing.
Right.
And it's hard to bridge the gap on how much bigger than even just money that Bitcoin represents, because it's cultural, societal thinking change.
Yeah.
Um, a huge, I had a couple of epiphanies. I had many epiphanies as I was reading last night. And I don't want to give away too much at all either, but one concept that I was thinking about was that when the debt system becomes untenable, like there's too much debt, um, you're at risk basically of people leaving, walking away, leaving, saying, I can't handle this. They opt out. They go from being sedentists to maybe back to being pastoralists or that kind of a thing. and that the system to maintain, from the fiat thinking, you'd say, oh yeah, every once in a while, they'd clean the slate. They'd have their jubilee. They'd wipe all debts and say, okay, no, you're all good now. We come back and we can start again fresh.
Right.
Here's some spring seed to start a crop again.
Right.
And we'll look to the next harvest.
Yeah.
That wasn't for the benefit of all the people that were going to leave the system. That's to the benefit of the system itself, to maintain itself so that it doesn't collapse.
Right.
Because then the people standing at the door keeping the ledger or sitting on the throne calling the shots, they would lose their power,
right,
which they must maintain and keep. So and I think of, whether it's the new money or the new mechanisms of a CBDC or UBI, all the things are to maintain the system functioning, the system of which takes from you, or farms you.
Right, exactly.
So you are being farmed, and the system is to maintain that farm of which you are an animal.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And that's that's why when I hear people talking about sound money and things like that, like I almost cringe now. Like I used to be a very hard sound money quote unquote advocate, but when you actually spend the time to unpack what money really is, you kind of go, oh, you can't really have that, because that's not what its purpose is. Its purpose is to make you comparable and countable, right? It's to take unrelated things and put them on the same scale. So you go, hey, I make shoes, I make donuts, I grow wheat, I do this. You go, well, those are all very different things. How do we measure all that in the same language? So we can take a little bit from all of you using the same number. And if we get you all to think in that same number, then that helps us, because then you feel like, okay, this is the metric by which I am successful or not. This is the metric by which I survive or not. And everything around me is also in that unit. So everything I see and do and think about, land, food, water, electricity, whatever it is, it's all priced in the same state unit. And so that's money's function, is to make it countable, make you countable. How much are you worth? Well, this many units. How much is that worth? That many units. How much of me do I have to give up to get that? You have to give up X number of units. Oh, well, how do I stack up units? Well, you have to do this, this, and this, and then you can stack up lots of units. And then when you give up units, it doesn't hurt as bad. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll try and do that then, right? But it's always about making you legible at the end of the day. It's making you something that you can write down on a book and go, okay, this is what this person owes and why, and this is how we're going to enforce it and why.
Yeah.
But the ultimate game is, are you feeding the system more things so the system gets stronger? Yeah. Okay, great. And system's working as intended. So when you say, hey, I want sound money, you go, how does that work exactly? Like the goal of the money is to make you countable. So you want to be soundly counted. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. You want to be soundly extracted from? What does that mean? And so it traces it back to commodity theories. And you go, well, if you talk about gold and silver, and they're not money, they've never been money. They're commodities they're divisible commodities that you can trade. That they become co-opted as quote unquote money, as the unit of state account, is a convenience for the state, and it's a convenience to give the illusion of stability to that, right? But once they could abstract that away to just straight math, then the rest of it becomes sort of irrelevant. But if you have commodities that you can trade, you can retain the value of those commodities regardless of the fiat regime. So Bitcoin as a commodity makes a lot more sense to me than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin can never be money, just like gold can never be money, or shells can never be money. That's just the thing the state uses to ensure some fungibility within their state unit. Yeah. But once the state unit became just, here's the number we made up today, and like all that was broken, right?
Yeah. What it brings to question is the definition of the word money that we presume it to be. We think we know what money is. So when we say sound money, we think, oh, well, that represents money, as if money is what we thought it is. And what it is was like, from the early times, was the reconciliation and ledger tracking of all the things. And so if you have sound money, it's a sound way to what? Track
you
whether that was days of labor owed or lengths of ditch you need to dig, or seed grain that was lent to you for harvest, or tools that were lent or that you made that are now broken that are worth something that you never gave back, or whatever it was. These are different things. So how do we track that? How do we reconcile that? Grain into silver, into days. Um, the sounder means of tracking all of that to farm from all of us was money.
Right.
If that portrays the right kind of a idea about it all.
Yeah, it's spot on. Yeah.
It also made me think of, it makes me think of archaeology. When I would learn about anthropology, archaeology in school and later in jobs, when I would read about it and study for it for reasons, and I just love it. And when you'd find a new site, and it's happened everywhere. The pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, Mayan temples. Oh, we found some new active area at a stream where they did stuff, and they start digging it up, and they can kind of try to paint the picture of how these people lived and why they did what they did and what it meant. And whenever there was something really anomalous or just like, why did they do this? This is like artistic or a pinnacle of a thing, or like there's a lot of effort put into a thing that doesn't have any other real economic purpose or whatever. And the hook they'd hang their head on that I would see every kind of time was like, well, it was something religious. It was belief systems. It kind of, what it gave to me was that, man, these people were, not to say stupidly, but just, they were superstitious. It was a chaotic world. They're trying to make sense of it. So they made their gods, they made their beliefs, they made structures around that. And it became like, well, just worship, just sort of like religion as a thing that we did to,
Make sense of the world. Yeah.
make sense of our world and cushion our mental health.
Yeah.
And provide a common kind of a purpose. How does that tie into anything economic then?
Right.
What I was reading last night was about how it does. And so like you could look at the pyramids, you can look at the, planning and layouts of roads and temples and where they were and gridding things out. And so even if you didn't have an agricultural economy and you had more foraging and trade routes and stuff that wasn't like grain, but like was harder to make a commodity out of, like to divide up as easily or move. You still see these things like temples, pyramids, work type projects that people were indebted to work on socially. It had also gridded out where people were and where they congregated and why. And so even though you'd say, well, they didn't have money, or at the same time, or they didn't have commodities in the same way, but it still comes back to the same base concepts underlying what money and economies were. That is basically maintaining that system, building that farming of humans. And many times that farming was an organization of people and indebtedness. It was, you could just go off and do your thing, but we know that you're not participating.
Right.
We know who's showing up or not. We know when we come around and we have stuff and you have stuff, we know who's participating or not. And you can say, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm good. No, that doesn't fly.
Doesn't fly. Yeah.
You're participating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those temples and all that, that's kind of what the book is alluding to, is like, it provides a schedule and they coincide with calendars, right? They go, hey, on this time, you're supposed to be here because the gods will it. And, if that's the sort of thing, and you need to come and help us build this temple. And so it gives you two options. It makes people countable, like people that are dispersed or diffuse now have a central place that they need to be at a certain time. So now you can count these people. Are they here or not? When they are here, they have to do certain things. If you want to gain access to the inner sanctums, if you want to gain access to higher authority or whatever, that you have to, provide your tithings, your this, your that, the other thing. And that's your path to spiritual salvation, or that's your path to meeting the gods, or that's your path to making sure your crop comes up next year, or whatever it is. But it all serves the same thing. It puts you on a ledger, right? Everybody that walks through the door, they have to walk through a door. And when they walk through that door, someone can count you, right? They can go, oh, Tom showed up. Hey, Susie showed up, but Mark's absent this week. So and all these people have to tithe something or they have to provide something. So you end up with a palace economy, and it doesn't have to revolve around grain states. It doesn't have to revolve around like, hey, this person owns this plot of land and yada, 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 because you end up with the same counting mechanism. Where is this person? When can we expect them to be back? And what can we expect of them when they get here? And when you walk through the door, the temple administration can say, hey, you owe us 14 days of irrigation, because that starts off as a more mundane thing, like, hey, we need to dig a ditch so the water can flow. Oh, okay. Well, me and Tom and Joe will all go and dig that ditch. Okay, cool. And then Tom and Joe and me all start to bitch and go, hey, how come we always have to dig the ditch? Oh yeah, you're right. We should spread that out amongst the community. So now Susie and Mary and Jane all have to go dig the ditch next week. Oh, okay, cool. That's fair. And then they, sooner or later get tired of it. So some administrator, some bean counter somewhere goes, hey, let's make this fair by making everybody do a little bit so we all gain collectively. Smart, right? Let's all cooperate. Sure. But once you can record that and say, hey, you owe us 4 days of labor, guess where you are? You're in a monetary system, right? And you're in debt and you have a thing you have to pay. And if you can't show up, then that creates other problems. But then the administration goes, well, hey, do you have other ways you can pay so we can encourage someone else to do that? And they go, yeah, well, I'll give you 2 sheep if I just don't have to come to work this week. Oh, okay, that's fair. And so all of a sudden you've created an economy around a schedule and a calendar and a duty, right? And once that thing grows and grows and grows and grows, then all of a sudden it becomes a center for all kinds of things to happen that everybody has to come back to, or else they don't get to participate in all the neat things that are happening in that system. But then the cost of leaving that system becomes very, very high, right? Because you go, hey, I got so many things tied into that temple economy, and I get free, like, flowing water, and, they have this big store of nuts, and I can just tap into those nuts. And, there's like these markets and all this place, like, oh, okay, yeah, but you're now tied to the economy that they've created just by making you show up and worship and then do some work, right? So it ends up in the same spot. Grain just happens to be more durable because it's more easy to divide and it stores way longer, so but
Right.
you end up with the same structures, the same everything, the same social organization around it. It's just grain happens to be a superior way to trap people in an area, basically.
And makes people very sedentary.
Yeah.
Um, and not sedentary in the sense that they're sitting around. In fact, they're working harder. You're not moving, you're not foraging, you're not moving a herd around. You got to make hay while the sun is shining, and
Right.
your repetition of movement narrows, your diet narrows,
Right.
everything narrows. You get into all of this stuff. I could go on and on and on. I find it fascinating, absolutely fascinating,
Well, thank
because
you.
I am super excited. I cannot wait to see I can imagine where it's going. I cannot wait to see how you go there, because already, for me, I've already totally reframed my views on what I thought money was.
Nice. That's
And
awesome.
it orients my thoughts again around what Bitcoin is and why I Bitcoin. It puts it into just another deep perspective that, when I think back and even like why I got into like gold,
Right.
even that was quite fiat. And it was about money,
Yeah.
hard money. And so Bitcoin now just represents, even as it functions as the best hard asset and property and function as money as well, it blows the lid off. I keep saying that. It blows the lid off the system more generally.
Right.
And like AI and other things, it creates that potential in us to not be stuck.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
so
that's the beauty of if I can do an effective job of tying these ideas together, I think it might help, maybe, and this may be self-aggrandizing, I don't know, but my hope is that it does drive that conversation forward so people can see, like, hey, this system isn't quite what you think it is. It's not quite as natural as you think it is, and there's a way to make it better so it doesn't harm as many people on the way. And that thing has already been invented. It already exists. It's called Bitcoin. Like gold serves that role on some level. Like I'm no longer of the opinion that like we should crap on gold and silver, right? Like I go, well, those have a role. They've had a role for 12,000 years, but they're also subject to capture, and that's one of the things that makes it fragile. Not that whether or not they're going to find more gold in an asteroid, or whether or not they can find some big, gold stream in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean someday, or they can figure out how to get gold out of the ocean. That's sort of besides the point. The point is currently occupies this role as a property that you can take custody of and that you can trade with other people, and people will kind of generally recognize it as having and holding a certain value for a certain amount of things. But it's also divisible and fungible and yada yada yada. So it serves a neat role there. It's just Bitcoin's way better at it,
Mm-hmm.
and it has this added benefit of like you can't come and steal it, and that changes how power resonates through a society. So if we have this amazing society that we've developed where we can feed 7 billion people on the planet, and we can fly faster than the speed of sound, and we can leave the planet if we just so desire, and we can have satellite communications, and we can talk to each other instantly, and we can just go and have the conveniences of being trapped in a sedentary system, but still make it livable. You go, well, it's not too bad, right? That's better than a lot of people have had it for a long time. So if we can find ways to smooth out those rough edges and make it so it works for everybody, I think that's an awesome thing. And I think Bitcoin provides that valve, that little toehold for those ideals that we all sort of strive for, like freedom and freedom of movement and freedom of transaction and freedom of expression and all that kind of thing. There's a toehold there, and it's called Bitcoin. And that's why I always say we really need to make sure we cherish this thing, because it's a rare event in humankind. And so to watch it just sort of migrate into like Bankcoin is like a terrible outcome for that, because it's this closing window that we can go, hey, we have a neat thing. Let's make sure it stays safe. So if you're watching, run a node, please.
Run a node.
Yeah.
And take your self-custody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I could go on and on about many things I think about in my recent learnings, but
well, we're an hour and 20.
I
got a social security number too, Johnny. I wasn't too big a fan of that. So
yeah, it was. It's it's used for more than what it was created for anymore.
Yeah, always.
And yeah, digital ID, surveillance, all that stuff. It's quietly and visibly well beyond all that as well. Like, we don't need the social security number anymore. We know exactly who you are in every
way, shape, and form. Yeah.
In every facet, we know who you are.
Yeah.
So we don't even need your social security number. You exist because you bank.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You are a data point, buddy.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, thanks for joining,
Johnny. I appreciate it, man. It's always great to see you. Travis, if you're still in the room, good to see you as well. Hope you're having a safe journey out to the deep lands. But yeah, it was fun. Fun chat.
Let me okay.
You gotta run the ad.
Oh dang it, this interface on StreamYard. Okay. Here, let me I get so into my thinking that I totally neglect my fun time. So I'm gonna play this real quick and then I'll wrap it up and we'll say goodbye.
All right.
Bye. As a Bitcoiner, you know that taking self-custody is critically important. But if you've ever had a seed phrase, you've probably had it written down on something kind of like this. You can hide it or secure it, but paper burns, paper fades, paper gets wet, paper rots, paper blows in the wind. Paper has things written on it that might look important. So get off paper and get yourself a MicroSeed at microseed.io. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever.